It's a hot button issue. Today at my school, we had our intruder, active shooter, active killer day of training. Hi, I'm Chuck. I'm an educator with a new job and a new commute, and that's this podcast, You in the Car with Me. Right now I'm actually on the way to a soccer game, post training day, and I'm just reflecting on our day of training. We spent the morning with, some classroom learning, you'd say. All of the staff of the district gathered in the high school auditorium, and we got some slides just about the basis of the philosophy of our training, and some history lesson also of where responses to active killer situations started, kind of with Columbine is where this really started as a thing, until the way that we address it now. There's a lot of language that there's some different language that different companies use as they train nonprofits, schools, churches, businesses. Large corporations do these trainings also. So there's different verbiage that different companies use, but where we're at now, instead of hide under the tables in the library like sadly a lot of kids did at Columbine in 1999, where we're at now is actively fighting for your life, running if you need to, that kind of thing. And instead of being passive, being active in that situation. It's led by the teachers, at least in the way that we were trained today. Teachers are going to be the most trained in this situation. We were the ones there. We're going to do drills with our students in an age-appropriate fashion, but we were the ones trained in the philosophy and given the tools to respond. And we're the ones who are, hopefully, as the adults in the room, the full-grown adults, going to be able to rationally respond in a calm manner, in a way that is going to keep the most kids safe, and we will prevail in those situations instead of becoming a body count. So yeah, we did that today. We started with classroom learning, and then in the afternoon after lunch we had a little more practical application. They got to use my classroom actually, so it was prime learning for me, because when I think this guy was retired, but also the off-duty officers often do these kinds of trainings too. So when the gentleman was demonstrating things on a door, it was literally my classroom door, which was fantastic for me in my learning. There were some other teachers that, literally any other teacher, we were not in their classroom, and so I heard a lot of people saying that they wish that they had been able to practice some of these things in their classrooms, which totally makes sense. But it was fantastic for me in my learning. So yeah, so we did some just scenario kind of walkthroughs in the afternoon. There wasn't rushing. Nobody was getting pelted with paintballs. I guess that's a thing that some companies do in this training. There were not cap guns getting fired. It was like if you've played football, the last practice before the game, we always call it a walkthrough. I don't know if other sports do this also, but we would do everything kind of half speed, and we would go through our whole game plan on the field, and just our helmets, definitely later on in the season. And we were just thinking through and going through some of the motions, all mentally, on how we would respond. And so we got to do a little bit of practice, and more so it was kind of quarter speed today on practicing those things in a way that was going to be safe and not trauma-inducing. And so we walked out of there today, I think I didn't see anybody who had a negative experience, and so I think it was handled very well. I like the philosophy that the company has as their basis, and I like the way they handled everything they did today. Where I'm a little bit hung up on is decision making that I'm going to make at the end of the day. And I think every educator has to think through this, and sadly every citizen should probably start thinking through this in one respect, because we're having mass killing events everywhere. Like, I'm staring at the soccer field where my kid's playing right now, and, you could have a mass shooter event right there. And that would be tragic. And so, like, just not even educators, not even church ministry leaders, security teams need to think about this. Literally, we all have to think about how we would respond in that situation. It sucks. But, yeah, so, like, you want to, as an educator, you like, we go because we're there for the safety of the kids. And so I'm just thinking about my legacy. Like, I'm pretty sure that when that active killer gets to the door, I'm going to do whatever I can to protect all the people in the room. And I think I have a lot of faith that I would respond well in there. But, I also, as a father, just have to think about when I step into that space, it would be a cool story, I guess, for my kids to be able to say that their dad died saving kids from a shooter, but also 4 kids and my wife have a story of how Chuck Baker didn't come home that day because he was saving 20 kids from a shooter. And I guess that's similar to when loved ones, moms and dads, die in war. Like, on one level, you're proud of that sacrifice, and you know that it was done for others. But also in the day-to-day, like, those people have now lost their son, husband, father, brother, that kind of thing. So it's fuzzy. It's fuzzy math for me. Like, I think when somebody's at the door that I would respond to protect those people at the door, but I really wish I didn't have to think about that, and I'm sure any of you that are educators think the same way. And if you know an educator, you probably also wish it could come down to that. I think a tool to help think through that is this 85-95-5 rule. I butchered the the wording of it. But it's an idea that my pastor actually introduced to me about 3 years ago. He didn't make it up, but I heard it first from him. It's like 85% or 80% of what you do, anyone could do that also. I think there's truth to that. Like, I take pride in being a good educator and caring deeply about equity and the experience and learning proficiency for all kids. But I'm not the only one who does that. And so, just like me being in the classroom as a teacher that knows math standards, that's definitely in my 80%. Or my 85%, whatever the number is. And the next 10% or so is like the stuff that you're really good at, but also there's some other people that could do those things too. And so maybe even math teaching is that. On another level, it might be the day-to-day interactions with students. Like, definitely when you see teaching as a ministry, and I believe that the kids that are in my room, in that classroom, at that school, they learn math with me, that God's put us together there, believing that God ordains all of our steps, and those things aren't an accident. So in the day-to-day, I believe that I am there to connect with kids that God has put there in my classroom to build those relationships and to interact with them in positive ways. And so that's probably my 10%, but only one person is the wife to... Only one person is the husband to my wife, and only one person is the dad to 4 kids at home. So that's my 5%. And so, like, when... And each of us have our own 5% also, and those people that we love, and those relationship roles that we fill, that only we can do that. And so when we are put in a line of fire, to put it that way, if we take that ultimate sacrifice, are we sacrificing the 5% that only we can do to fill that 80% that other people could have done just as well? I think you could argue it that way, taking the same reasoning that I just did, believing that God puts teachers and kids together in classrooms and in situations, it could also be easy to interpret that as that being God ordained also. And just knowing that God has hand on that, and he knew that was going to happen on that day, and that if it were me, that I was going to respond that way, and to God be the glory. But it's some crazy calculus. So that's what's on my mind tonight. The drive is over. I'm going to go watch some soccer. But I hope that you keep safe, and I'll see you on the next drive.